feel like your light ring is a bunch of bubbles.
I am recording, so here we are.
Okay. Here we are. Here we are. We finally made it to the podcast studio. Is it a No, YouTube studio. I don't know what it is. It's a little box.
It's a creative space
that I've created to make these videos to post on YouTube about people's stories. And we're here with Carlyn today.
Hello, friends.
And she has a story. She has many stories, and we've already been talking for a couple hours trying to figure out which story and how we want to, what are we going to do, but I just think maybe we just freaking wing it and see what happens.
That is one approach
Right?
to life. That's usually how I roll. I just wing it and see what happens.
And see what happens. Okay, one of the things that we touched on earlier was labeling.
Yeah.
I think that was so appropriate because lately that's been coming up a lot for me. I just saw a book in my mother's bathroom called Hung by the Tongue. And maybe some of you have heard of this book. Have you heard of this book? It's about the words that you use, like literally choking you. And that's the picture on the cover of the book is the guy like hung, his tongue is out, it's wrapped around his neck and he's hanging by his tongue.
Well, and I think what we would need to explain is we live in a world right now where there's a label for everything. Like there are actual labels of genders and labels of this, but that's not the labels we're talking about. We're talking about the labels that we choose to identify for ourselves, not what other people give us. Like it's the label that I identify with me because not something you give me.
But
right?
If you grew up a certain way and you were labeled as a kid a certain way and you took that on into your being,
right,
that could apply.
Very much so. However, I don't have any, well, I do have a story, I guess, where I was labeled.
You don't have a story
right
for that particular reason. But like, okay, so right now it's huge ADHD.
Right.
ADD is massive. I feel like everybody I know has ADD or ADHD.
I mean, I do. I was diagnosed. I was on Adderall for 20 years. I weaned myself off about 6 years ago and have gone through a whole journey of like re-getting to know my brain and having to learn with, because, yeah, I was given a label in 1998 called ADHD. And this was before Google. This was before the distractions. This was when you actually just got distracted by life. You had a hard time concentrating. You had a hard time taking notes in a big classroom because you went from a small classroom to a big college university. And all of a sudden, there's something wrong with you because you're struggling. But the reality was, I was struggling. However, I was diagnosed with ADD at the exact same time I was diagnosed with MS. At the exact same time, both my best friends were killed in separate accidents. So the depression alongside with MS, which is known as a disease that causes fatigue, along with the unhappiness, the doctors actually, when they prescribed me the Adderall, said, well, you're going to have fatigue with your MS. So the Adderall is going to also help with that. So I was put on this drug being told it was going to offset everything else. The reality is I have a addictive personality and they gave me dopamine.
Right.
They were giving me dopamine. So ADD is an interesting topic for me to talk on personally because I don't know if I was properly labeled, but I sure did enjoy the fun of being on Adderall for 20 years. And I will say it gave me wings and I accomplished a lot. But I had this knowing that it was, it didn't feel in alignment when I decided to go off of it. And again, that was something I chose to let go of. Like if I were to sit and have a conversation with women about the power of labels, it's not the power of the label. It's the power of choosing whether we hold on to it or not. It has absolutely nothing to do with anybody else on the entire planet and what their thoughts are for anything. Nothing has meaning until you give it meaning. And that's really it.
Yeah, we were just listening last night to a program on Mind Valley, actually. I want to say Paul McKenna, maybe. But he was talking about names and labels and he said he referenced a tribe, and I can't remember the name of the tribe, but he said they don't have a color for they don't have a name for the color blue. So they put a bunch of green Post-its and one blue Post-it in a circle. Like, just imagine like a ring, kind of like this ring light.
Yeah.
Just all green Post-its and one blue. And they asked these tribesmen to pick out the one that was blue. And they couldn't pick it out. It was almost like they didn't see it.
Right.
Because of the RAS, the reticular activating system, right?
I don't know.
So the reticular activating system is part of your brain where you think of something like, oh, you know, my friend's gonna call me, a specific friend, Sandy. Sandy's gonna call it. Sandy's gonna call us right now.
And then
in her ball gown.
Oh, I get it.
And
I get
then
what
all
you're
of
saying.
a sudden, you're like, oh, seeing phones everywhere,
Yeah,
or
yeah,
the
yeah.
word the name Sandy keeps popping up because it's kind of in your awareness.
Right. Like I think of a Volvo and I see Volvos everywhere.
That's the RAS, reticular activating system. So the interesting thing was that literally out of all of these green squares, they could not pick out the blue one. I mean, that's a whole different color.
Yeah.
How could they not see it? But
you've seen What the Bleep?
They have like 20-something names for green of the different shades. So the next experiment was they did all of the Post-its were green, except one was a slightly different shade of green that you and I almost would not perceive, and they picked it out immediately. Fascinating. It's weird, right?
Well, and it's, yeah, I mean, I'm trying to figure out where to go with this right now.
Well, going back to, you know, just what you choose to take on and believe and the words that we use to describe our lives. And
I think that if I'm going to make an impact to anybody out here, that I need to share a little bit of why I'm passionate about labels. Or else I don't think it makes sense.
Oh, yeah. This feeds right into your story.
So, if there's anyone that's been diagnosed with something, and then all of a sudden you're given a label. And not only are you given a label, but it comes with fear. There's not many labels that you're handed that come with like, there are pink bows and like happy little labels, but a lot of little labels come with something you didn't ask for. Right? Let's be honest.
Oh, yeah.
And so at a young age, I was handed a label that I didn't ask for. Not only did I not ask for it, I'd never heard of it. I didn't even know what it was. So I didn't even know exactly how I was supposed to respond. So the label was multiple sclerosis. And I was 19. I'd never heard of MS. I'd only heard of muscular dystrophy, MD. So I thought I was Jerry Lewis Telethon. Like, that's what I thought was happening to me. But it wasn't. It was MS. And so MS, there's a million ways your brain can go when you're given something that some call a death sentence. Some think you're going to have paralysis. There's a million different ways to slice and dice it, but ultimately it's what I chose to do with it that is the only thing that matters. Like, society can tell me it's a death sentence, but for someone like me, a month after I was diagnosed with MS, and then again 8 months later, both my best friends were killed in car accidents separately. And so what became death sentence now didn't look like death sentence because I felt what death was. I knew what death was. Death was this. MS, I had been sick and I got better again. You know, I had paralysis on my left leg, but then I could walk again. So in my mind, and it wasn't an overnight, I mean, I'm 25 years into my MS journey and it has been a journey. It's only been 13 years MS med-free. And then I became a runner. I mean, there's so many layers to my identity when it came to how I used this label. But ultimately, it's choosing to use the label to serve you versus set you back. It's choosing to use the label to learn versus become victim. It's choosing to use a label to how can I contribute versus like, I'm going to go be victim and hole up in my room and like wait for this label to kick in.
Wait for death.
Yeah, wait for the label to kick in.
Right.
And there's ways you can abuse a label. Like, I could have gotten a handicap sticker, but I'm like, but I'm not handicapped. Oh, but I have a label that could get me a handicap sticker. So then we have to have this integrity of like, how do we use this label?
Girl, I have a friend who has a handicap sticker. I mean, they technically have the sticker, but they use it in a way that I find a little...
So there's a fine line here, because I do believe there's a system out there, and if you don't work it, it works you. So I will say there is that. But when it comes to self-healing, if you're choosing to identify with a disease and own it, just be prepared to own it.
The power of your mind over your body. What is your backstory so that we really understand? Like, we heard that you got diagnosed with ADHD and MS, and 2 of your friends died.
In the same year.
In the same year, which made you really rethink what a death sentence was, because MS wasn't really, to you at that time, a death sentence, because you saw death when your friends died. So tell me the rest of your journey and how you were able to, I don't know, live such a full life.
And let's see how to sum this up. I think that when I was handed MS, my parents didn't have friends with it yet. There wasn't Google invented. There was no way to go find anybody like me. There was no one to compare myself to. There was nothing. I think Richard Pryor had it. That was about it. And I had nothing in common with him. Okay. So I was on this self journey. And I think that's when we're given these things. We live in a world now where we look outside of ourselves for the answers. But the outside of myself didn't exist back then. And so I had to then decide for myself how I was going to allow this label to shape me and what I was going to do with it. And I was young. I was 19. There's no blue book or whatever. So at the time in college, recognizing I was depressed, recognizing that I was struggling in school, like I looked into traveling overseas to study, and I ultimately decided like the medicine for myself was to remove myself from where everything felt toxic and heavy and everybody was worried about me, and I wanted to go live for myself, because I just learned very quickly life can change like this. And so priorities shifted. And so back then I ended up getting into a school in London and going to travel overseas. And before I knew it, I was in Dublin, Ireland on St. Patrick's Day. And I looked around and I was like, oh my God, I wouldn't be here had these bad things not happened to me. Because I never would have thought to push myself out of the uncomfortableness where I was to create like this dream come true. So all of a sudden I was like, oh my God, what if bad things happen for a good reason? And I can't deny that this is a good thing happening. So once I embodied that, then this MS, as scary and as certain as uncertainty as it was, that was just like the seed. And so like 3 years later, when I graduate and I moved to Dallas, Texas, and now I'm working for a company, and all of a sudden this company I'm working for, they're a sponsor for the MS bike ride. I didn't know you could fundraise for your cause. No one knows I have it. I wonder if I should join this bike team. Let me tap on someone's shoulder and let them know. Oh, not only can I join the team, it's a friends and family team with like 70 other people like me. Oh my God, okay, I can do good things. And then they're like, Carlyn, you don't look like the normal MS person. Do you want to go on TV for us and promote the bike ride? I was like, I'm a television broadcasting major. Of course I'd love to go on TV. So how we take, and this is just the beginning, and there's 20 more years of this. It's what we do with the label. It's, are you a widower? Are you there's so many, and I'm using labels that I've watched friends go through, like the idea of widower, the idea of being given label a disease, the idea of I was fired. No, okay, maybe something just dissolved. It wasn't right for you anymore. And there's a blessing in disguise to this, you didn't quit, you let go of what no longer served you. Like, it's the words we choose of how we form everything. And I think that, even with the loss of a friend, the loss of anything, is it really loss? Like, what opens up as a result now? The whole concept is this idea that tragedy maybe can actually serve a purpose, but it's really hard because you don't want bad things to happen to good people. It
is a tough pill to swallow for most people to really even think about that. But actually, I wrote most of my book that I wrote is about that,
Yeah,
actually.
well, it's the human experience.
Yeah.
Suffering, there's not a religion out there that doesn't say suffering is part. Where do we grow from?
Yeah.
Look at the lotus. Look at Jesus. Look at everything. You know,
everything.
like suffering is what they say. Suffering is
challenge.
inevitable, but feeling it's optional, or whatever the.
Yeah. What is that saying?
I
don't know, but I know what you're talking about.
But
suffering is inevitable, but like,
girl,
how you handle it is
it's
optional.
like I wouldn't be sitting here next to you had I not lost the job or been told I had signed an offer letter on a job and a place to live, and it was February 2020. We can figure out where we all were, and all of a sudden, the world's collapsing, and I have 2 suitcases filled with stuff, thinking I had a job and stuff to go to, and I could have been like, oh my God, my life is over, and gone and found some place I wasn't happy with to rent, conveniently surrounding where I was, and just made it work. The force. Or I go, okay, show me what you got. And here I am in St. Pete 3 years later, still here from coming out here to pandemic, and everyone's like, I'm so sorry you lost your job. Do you know how many times I got, I'm so sorry you lost your job. I'm so sorry. I go, gosh, I'm not. I wouldn't have come to Pandemic in Paradise had that stupid job kept me on board. People say, I'm so sorry you got diagnosed with MS. I became a 3-time marathon runner, summited 14,000 foot mountains. You think I would have done that had I not learned the power and the gratitude and just the awareness of my body? No one in my family's an athlete. It was born in me from these ideas that something was wrong with me, or like there was something to challenge. It was almost like, oh, hold my beer. Okay, you're gonna do that? Okay, here's what we're gonna do. You know,
hold my beer.
Hold my beer. I got this. Right?
I love that.
And I'm just saying, and I'm not saying it's easy. Here's where we get real.
Yeah.
I don't shit rainbows. I'm a human. This came with, do you know how much anxiety comes with trusting yourself? Do you know how hard it is to actually book the flight, to actually apply for the program, to actually commit to the marathon, to do the thing that actually scares the crap out of you, but yet there's some weird feeling calling in you that you like know you're supposed to do it, that it's almost harder to not do it, but you can't explain it. It's just this like thing in you. That is a big, that's the stuff that makes me want to get like teary-eyed, like, oh my God, it's so hard. That moment is so fucking hard.
To just do it anyway.
You just do it anyway.
Yeah. That is massive. I mean, I feel like that.
I'm still in it right now. I'm in it right now for myself.
Cry just listening. Yeah, because that right now is so many people's block. It's why I don't have. And it's my block too. Yeah. Because it's like everything is so scary, and so we don't want to go and do it. So you've had this opportunity to like just feel the fear and do it anyway in such a massive way.
Do it anyway.
Yeah.
So I have a theory for this. Shall I announce my theory?
Yeah, do it.
The power of fear to freedom.
Fear to freedom. Ooh, I like it.
Fear to flow, fear to freedom. There's the, oh my gosh, my mind just went blank. My mind just goes blank in these moments. The hero's journey.
The hero's journey, yes.
I didn't make up the hero's journey.
No.
It's Superman. It's watching
classic.
It's classic, right?
Yeah.
It's what we all go through. It's the fear that we face. It's feeling it and acknowledging it. It is, I don't actually know if I can, it's facing it.
Facing it, yes.
It's then having faith with it.
Overcoming your challenges.
It's forgiving yourself.
Growth.
It's the huge piece of this.
Yeah.
Whenever I was supposed to be at the wedding in town that my friends drove from, that they ended up dying. I didn't go home. If I had gone home, would Margaret have left the wedding at the time that she did and had her accident, there's always my teeth. I haven't even talked about my teeth yet. Like, these are fake. I knew not to get on that bike, but I did. There's always a what if, a shoulda, coulda, woulda. There's an element of self-forgiveness. Like, I'm not talking about like forgiveness of somebody else that did something wrong, because that's a whole other level. I'm talking about when we played a role in the label. So even my MS, technically there's no like proof of how I was diagnosed, but I know who I was internally between the age of like 5 and 19 when I was diagnosed. And my body dysmorphia and my negative talk and my eating disorder, it started at a really young age. I was not very nice to myself. And I kept everything inside and made sure to keep it inside by stuffing it with food. And then it was just this constant thing. And like, even now knowing the gut correlation with the brain and autoimmune, like, we didn't know any of that back then. But if you were to say, like, Carlyn, how did you heal yourself from MS? Like, part of it is, well, the happier I became, the healthier I became. And that's because I'm no longer that version of myself. But man, do I have to forgive that version. I mean, I had to forgive that version of myself. I feel like I still, that version is still in there sometimes. I still have to forgive her, you know? And so I think that is a big part of these labels, is the acceptance and the forgiveness piece. That's very personal. I mean, we might have a therapist, we might have a coach, we might have somebody working with us on it. But if we don't navigate that part of it, then you're right. All those people out there, they can hurt our feelings. But the second you make peace with it, no one can steal your smile.
Yeah.
You are invincible.
No one can steal your smile.
I have MS. You don't think I should do that? Watch me. Oh, so this happened to so-and-so. Like, it's just like I'll never forget. I had this dream I wanted to, when I was first in college. Like, I was a television broadcasting degree, but I didn't know what I wanted to do. And then all of a sudden I was like, I want to be a flight attendant. This solves all my problems. I want to be a flight attendant. I want to travel everywhere. And you know, not to throw my mom under a bus, but my mom's first response was, well, do you really think you should do that with MS? And I will never forget this fight, because I said, don't you ever put a box around my dreams again. If I lived my life, what if, I would have no life. And this was me at 20 years old.
Wow, you're firecracker, girl.
And I said, how dare you try to say it might be an issue? It doesn't exist yet. I'll cross that bridge when I get to it.
Yeah, amen.
So I never ended up becoming a flight attendant, because I didn't realize I'd have to live in like Charlotte, North Carolina. But, and I was really done with the Carolinas at the time, but that's where the jobs were. But a lot of my choices in life have been very, some would say, reckless. I flew to Australia in 2005 without a penny to my name. I actually flew without my wallet, knowingly. I got on the airplane knowing I had not a dime to my name on a 3-month trip to Australia.
Wow.
And this was before cell phones.
Right.
Not only did I figure out a way to have money immediately, and like transferring money online by the girl that I was then met to travel with, because I was working for a nonprofit overseas. It was like this crazy story. But that wallet made it from the LAX airport to an L-shaped motel in small town Australia 2 weeks later, by me just being resourceful, planning ahead, without a phone, and making it happen. And I didn't even tell the story until later, because we didn't even have social media. So I was like, you guys are never going to believe what happened to me in Australia. My friends were like, I go, what was I to do? Not get on the airplane?
Right? So many people, I think, wouldn't go.
So when I've told this story so many
times,
and people are like, they go, well, how did you get through the airport? And I go, passport. You're so excited to use your passport when you're traveling internationally. I didn't realize I didn't have money until I went to duty free to get snacks. And I left it in the rental car at LAX. That's the crazy. Biggest rental car in all of America. And
They got it.
Not only did they get it, there was my driver's license, a credit card, a debit card, and a $20 bill. I knew this. And when I was able to get Enterprise on the phone, I was already in Australia by the time I got them on the phone, and I said, because I knew it was a rental car, so I knew the license plate number, but I was like, when you find this, keep the 20. I just need everything else. I was 26 at the time, by the way. Sure enough, my wallet came without the fucking 20. Guy took it as a tip, and I was like, right on, dude. I told you you could have it. Crazy story. But again, it comes down to, it's not just labels, it's letting go of the limiting beliefs and the mindset that become the labels that we put on ourselves. And this is where I constantly am in battle with myself all the time. I mean, I think we all are.
Yeah.
So it can be as concrete as MS. It could also just be, I'm not worthy. It could be as concrete as, single. I ain't single. I am independent. I don't understand when anytime I'm on the phone and there's like a credit card company or a survey or whatever, and they go, are you single, married, divorced, or widowed? I go, none of the above. And they go, what? And I go, I'm me. I'm independent. I'm not singular. If you met me, there is nothing singular about this at all. And then whoever's on the other line laughs. Because I'm like,
yeah.
What's singular?
Yeah.
There's
You
a
gotta
lot.
check the box.
There's a lot going on. Speaking of checking.
That's really interesting because, okay.
Yes,
I
we're
lost
not
my train of
singular.
thought. I lost my train of thought, but yeah, there's so many labels. And actually, one of them for me that I've really been working on is that life is hard.
I know.
And that's a tough one. And it's something
because we're getting old.
It's been my whole life.
Okay, yeah.
Like, life is hard. You gotta get out there and work hard and work hard.
Yeah.
Or else you're not worthy. If you're not working hard, you're not worthy. And that's that's a very prevalent, I feel like.
That's the force too.
Yeah, the force.
When we think about forcing versus flow, when we think of, so one of my favorite, I don't even call it ideology, one of my favorite ways of living is when I read a blog in 2017 that changed my life. And her blog no longer exists because I used to send it to everybody and it's down. Mm-hmm. But I read the difference between trying and allowing. And I realized, oh my God, that's how the magic has been happening in my life. It's when I allow it to happen.
Allow it.
It's not me trying to make it happen. Because when I'm trying to make it happen, it's the moment I actually go, okay.
Surrender.
This is crazy.
Yeah. You surrender.
Show me what you got. Show me what you got.
I love that. There's
it looks like a new studio is opening up for me.
There's that great saying, it's what you allow is what will continue.
Yes.
And that can be like a negative thing that you're allowing. Like you can allow somebody to speak to you unkindly and it will continue. If you block that and you're not allowing the unkindness, then you're allowing the kindness and then that will continue.
It's hard. It's like, what will we tolerate? Tolerate's a word too. And what will we, because there's so much conditioning and it's very disruptive to really take a hard look at your life and your situations and what you are allowing that's positive and what you are allowing that no longer serves. Mm-hmm. Because things can actually serve until they don't serve. Mm-hmm. I wouldn't have all these hard lessons. I learned through chaos. I had to allow the chaos for me to have all these stories. The stories wouldn't be here without the chaos. Right?
Yeah.
But I just had a brain fart where I was thinking how did we even end up sitting here today? And it's because I was telling you the story a couple weeks ago how I turned down going on a trip that was fully paid for to go to Colorado, which is where I came here from. I love Colorado. The mountains are my thing. Anything adventurous is my thing. Flight paid for, everything. But it was with a nonprofit that supports those young adults with MS. And I had to check the box. I had MS. And I went, 15 years ago, I checked the box and it was fine. But my relationship with my MS has shifted and changed and morphed so dramatically, especially over the last 5 years. And it's not that I don't support those that have it, and it's not that I'm anti it. It's that I'm not somebody out there identifying myself with it in the same way anymore. And all of a sudden I was like, is this authentic of me to go on this trip and have my doctor check I have MS when if you bumped into me on the street, I would be very adamant to be like, I do not have MS. So do I have it to go on the trip? Or what is my role to serve with it? And so I'm going through my own identity crisis right now because I've helped a lot of people over the years, a lot. And I love my story. I'm grateful to have it to help others, because people that are newly diagnosed now, I want them to know I exist. I want them to know my journey. I want them to know that they have a choice. I want them to know there's actually a lot of people like me out there. You just don't hear about them. 95% of my friends with MS, because I know a lot of people live just like me. You just don't hear about them, but there's a lot of us, right? Mm. But those aren't the ones getting all the attention, because we idolize those that we see overcoming. So like, I got a half-page article written about me in the Denver Post when I ran the Boston Marathon for MS, because that was me running for my cause as somebody with MS. I wouldn't do that now.
Mm-hmm. But you didn't want to check that box.
But now it's like, I'm so different with it now. Yeah, I'll be honest, it's scary.
That's crazy.
It's really,
I mean, not crazy in a bad way. It's like, it just shows the amount of power that your mind has. And your spirit.
But I'll be honest, there is half the voice in me goes, Carlyn, stop being so delusional. Mm-hmm. I wrestle with, am I just living in La La Land? Am I trying to ignore something that could catch up with me in 10 years? So what I try and tell myself is, all I have is right now. And right now, I'm not symptomatic. So if I'm not symptomatic, why would I say I have it? Mm-hmm. If I was experiencing optic neuritis, if I was experiencing, you could draw a line down my body and my whole left side was numb. I had no feeling up here. I couldn't even feel my torso. At one point, had paralysis on my left leg, no use of it for like a week and a half. I've had symptoms. When I had those symptoms, I had MS. But if I don't have symptoms, why give it any power? Mm-hmm. It's like when you have allergies. You don't walk around every day going, oh, I have allergies. No, you only have allergies when you're sneezing.
Right, right, yeah.
But if you're allergic to peanut, or like, you're only having an allergic reaction in that moment. But yet, it's like, why do we we'll choose to own something when we're not experiencing it. Does that make sense?
Yeah, well, it comes back to that victim mentality. Yeah. We're like, oh, I'm allergic to this, and I just can't be around it. And like, that's the story that you're constantly telling. Even though you're not in the situation and it's not an issue right now, you just choose to constantly identify with that. And that's, part of the victim mentality.
Yeah, so I think a big part of when it comes to these journeys we all go through when we're given something is, first of all, it's not about not having empathy for whenever I meet somebody newly diagnosed with MS and they're sent my way, because it still happens. I mean, I've been, 25, I don't know. Anyways, I always address it the exact same way. I so wish these weren't the circumstances for which we're meeting, but oh my God, I'm so grateful to meet you. I'm going to flip it right there. You can't tell me that I can't be excited to meet you. Mm-hmm. Oh, but I have to be excited to meet you because you have MS. Oh, right. But look at me with my MS. So, okay, I'm going to look at you the same way I look at me. I hope you didn't come here for me to just want to hold space for all of your stuff, because I will, because I understand you, and you need someone that understands you. So for now, I'm going to be completely understanding of how scary it is and how it's freaking scary. That's the problem. And that's a whole other rabbit hole, is you take a hospital, ain't nobody coming out there. You're either getting a good note or a bad note, right? And when you're given that bad note, they don't go, we know this is really scary. We're going to put you in touch with somebody that's actually mentally doing really well with this. We're actually just going to hand you this label and send you on your merry way. Yeah. Have fun with webmd.com.
Good luck with that.
Right? Good luck with that. And then we're just given this like free range of, but if they could be put in touch with somebody that's actually 5 steps ahead of them and doing okay with it and whatever it is they're dealing with, wouldn't that be nice?
Well, that's the whole point of this.
Yeah.
Yes. That is the whole point of this. So thank you. Thank you for sharing.
Thank you for inviting me to share. If there's anybody that sees this that wants to talk about, my website is connectwithcarlyn.com.
Nice.
And my Instagram is connectwithcarlyn. Carlyn is spelled Carlyn. But I have a lot of stories, and I really feel there's, my smile shirts, everything I do is about when I show up for me, I invite others to show up for themselves. And it's only in the sharing of these stories do we find our synchronicities and our common denominators. Because again, MS is the best thing that ever happened to me. The friends that I made, the connections I created,
the mountain peaks
the opportunities that I was given or created, and it's not just MS. I mean, it's so much, and because of the life I've lived, I'm connected with a lot of people with a lot of variety of stories. So oftentimes someone, like I met a woman who had a double kidney transplant from lupus. I'm like, I know another woman that had a double kidney transplant from lupus. Would you like me to put you in touch? Because those are the pieces of the people I've collected. Because everyone has stories, and people feel safe to share their stories with me because I feel safe to share mine, and that's what invites it all. And then when you can be a catalyst to help connect people and their stories, it's the greatest gift.
That's a beautiful gift.
Yeah.
Yay! I'm excited. So I'm going to put all your links in the notes underneath the video. And thank you guys for watching. I know, it did get deep, but beautiful. Thank you.
Yeah.
And
to be continued.
Don't take on any labels. Stand up for yourself in power. What else?
Trust yourself.
Trust yourself and your intuition.
Trust yourself and your intuition, and don't be scared of the anxiety. Like, don't be scared. Like,
surrender.
Yeah. It's all a part of it.
What was that thing you did? Show me.
Show me what you got.
Show me what you got.
Show me what you got. And that is Venus going.
Show me what you got.
Show me what you got.
I love that. I'm going to keep doing
like
I'm going to do that. Show me what you got.
That's literally when I found out I was losing my housing 28 days after I moved in, which ultimately is what became the catalyst for I lived in Hawaii before I came here. So I moved to Hawaii on a one-way ticket. I literally did that. I was angry for about 3 days. I was trying to find laws within the system in Denver. Could someone actually give me a 30-day notice? I mean, I was angry. And I think that's what we have to identify is we're allowed to be angry.
Oh, yeah.
You have to move through the anger. You have to feel that anger,
and
move through it.
The motivate. It's like motivation.
And then
power.
Go, okay, show me what you got.
On that note.
Maybe that should be my book title. Show me what you got.
Yeah, hey, you just came up with it. I love that.
Maybe that would be good.
I love it. I love it. Show me what you got.
I feel like that's a, anyways. Now my mind's just going.
Yeah.
Please like, subscribe, and turn on notifications. We will see you next time on Most Amazing Woman.